Hello everybody, welcome back to the show. And a large bronze steam boiler, isn't it pretty? So nice. You may be able to tell that I have moved it since the last episode. I didn't like where I had put it. I wanted to make it a little more symmetrical, and I've put in two of the iron tanks from Railcraft, which are going to hold the steam. And I've made these a little bit bigger, so they will each hold 720,000 liters, I think it is, or 720 buckets of steam. Cool. Now, what I want to do is I want to work on trying to semi-automate the running of the boiler. I don't actually know if what I'm going to try is going to work, because I don't have a tendency, I don't really experiment with things outside of my actual game world that I'm playing in. So it's basically just an idea that I have, and I hope that it will work. And it basically centers around using these fluid detectors. Now, a fluid detector basically does what it sounds like. It's one of the covers that can be placed upon GregTech machinery, and it detects if there's any fluid. So when you have one of these multi-block structures, you don't just place the fluid detector anywhere. Remember, there's an input hatch here, which is going to take in water. There's an output hatch here, which will output steam. So I could put the fluid detector on either one of these things. This one would detect how much water is in this particular hatch. This would detect how much steam is in that particular hatch. And the way the fluid detector works is that it outputs a redstone signal that is proportional to the amount of liquid or fluid that is in that hatch or machine or whatever you're doing. I realize that I need a screwdriver, so I wanted to grab that before I forget. Good. So, in other words, if it's empty, it will output a redstone signal of 0 or no redstone. And if it's full, it would output a redstone signal of 15, which is the maximum. And if it's half full, it's going to output a redstone signal of 7 or 8, somewhere around there. So I can place this cover, say on this hatch, like that. And again, it's going to output a redstone signal. So if I go like that, you can see there's a redstone signal of 0, and obviously that's going to be because there's no water in here. Now I'm going to temporarily hook up this pipe, and you should see this redstone signal rising. See, now it's got a redstone power of 1. Okay, so a little bit of fluid went in there, and now I can't access it because it's all blocked off. But let's go underneath it. Might be the easiest way to do that. Like so. And let's dig away some dirt. There we go. And so you can see there's 800 liquid water. There's 800 water in here, and that's outputting a redstone signal of 1. And if I connect this to the actual reservoir here, like so, you should start to see this redstone signal, the redstone power that's being emitted, go up. So it's at 4, it's at 5, etc. It's going to climb, and that is in proportion to, again, how much is actually in the hatch. So when this is emitting a redstone signal of 15, which is the maximum redstone signal, that means that it is full. And you can see now it is full. It's not going to take in any more water. It is completely full. Now, using a screwdriver, what I can do with one of these fluid detectors is I can invert the signal. So I right click on it, I think, like that. And inverting the signal means that it will just do the exact opposite. So when it's full, it will emit a redstone signal of 0 or no redstone. And when it's empty, it emits a redstone signal of 15, the maximum. And then again, proportionally, depending on how much is in there. So that is basically how the fluid detector works. I can place that on these hatches to determine how much water is in that particular hatch. And so I could do something like detecting when the hatch is maybe half full or half empty, depending on your point of view, right? You know, is the input hatch half full of water or is the input hatch half empty? I could determine when the input hatch is half empty and use that to emit a signal that will then turn off the boiler. Because if the input hatch is half empty, that means something has gone wrong, right? I mean, this reservoir should be constantly supplying this hatch with water all the time. It should actually basically never be half empty. So if that were to happen, something has gone wrong, and it would be like an emergency cutoff, like, whoa, stop the boiler. Because if you remember, I said, if you try to burn coal in the boiler and there's no water, it will explode. So we don't want that to happen for obvious reasons. So that is something that I could do. I'm not going to quite do things that way, though. So let me put the ground back in. There we go. And let me take out these small pipes. I'm going to go like this. And instead here, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use these large bronze fluid pipes. Now, in GregTech, pipes are a little bit different than pipes in other mods. Oops, that wasn't supposed to happen. And in GregTech, basically, each section of pipe serves as, it acts almost as if it's its own tank of the fluid. So if you look at these large bronze fluid pipes where it says fluid capacity, 4,800 liters per second, that 4,800 is also how much fluid can be stored in this particular pipe. And what's cool about these covers, these fluid detectors, or any kind of cover for that matter, is that in addition to being placed on GregTech machinery, I can also place them on a GregTech pipe. And so this fluid detector would detect how much fluid is within this pipe. So right now it's a redstone signal of 0 because there is no fluid in this pipe. Incidentally, just before I go on, as far as I'm aware, I don't think you can attach fluid detector or covers to anything that is not GregTech. So I can't put it on this railcraft tank, even though I have tried. So anyway, so this fluid detector is now going to detect how much fluid is in this particular pipe. And as I said, right now there's none. So as fluid comes out of the reservoir and into this pipe, of course, this number will change. And so we'll see it grow, and it's going to grow fairly quickly because the amount of fluid that comes out of the reservoir is fairly quick. And you may have seen it oscillate there a little bit when I did that. And so let's actually do that again so you can see that happening. So let's take out all of these pipes. And we're going to take out that pipe because it's got fluid in it. I'm going to put it back. All right, and it's 0. And when I connect this up, you'll see this grow and then kind of the redstone power grow and oscillate. And that's in the Wayla, which is for me is in my upper left-hand corner. So I'll make that a little bit bigger so you can see it a little bit better. There you go. So the redstone power is 0. And if I connect this, you'll see it go 4, 11, 15, and then it kind of goes back down, and then it goes back up, and it's kind of mushing around, and it's going back and forth and back and forth, and then finally it will stabilize at the 15. Okay, and I like to have this a little bit small so it's not in my way. So I'm going to reduce it back down to where it was. There we go. The reason for that, again, has to do with the way the GregTech pipes work. They sort of, as I've heard it said, the fluids within them sort of slosh around. They don't just flow into them and then just stay there. They try to establish an equilibrium amongst all the pipes that are in the network, if you will. It's the best way to kind of describe it, I guess. I don't completely understand it, so I don't want to try to get too in-depth in explaining it, but that's kind of the way I understand it. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to add a shutter, and I'm going to add the shutter to there. The shutter works to control the flow of the liquid. Again, this is not something that I 100% understand, so I don't want to try to explain it and probably end up giving the wrong information about it. There are other videos that talk about the covers and the shutters and all that that are much better than what I could explain. So if you were interested in that, that's what you would want to read. But basically, I'm using this shutter to help control the flow of the liquid, and I'm going to use this liquid detector to tell me how much fluid is in this pipe. So again, there's none in there right now. If I hook it up, we should see this climb right up to 15 and then stay there. And that's the shutter keeping it from what it did before, where it went up and down. So when this is at a redstone level of 15, it means that this pipe here is full. And this pipe here will be full when this hatch is also full, because this pipe has nowhere to push the water. And so as a result, if I invert this signal, now I have no redstone signal, and I have no redstone signal because this pipe is full. So essentially, if this pipe is anything but full, I will get a redstone signal, which indicates, and I should hopefully never get that, because again, I should be getting constant water through this. So if for any reason this this pipe gets a redstone signal, meaning it's not full, I'm going to use that to tell the boiler to shut off. That's sort of like my safety valve cutoff switch, if you will. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on this for this input hatch here. So again, I'm going to have a shutter, which is going to be set to input, a fluid detector, like so, which is inverted. And so again, if we look at this, I'm receiving a redstone signal because there's this pipe is not full, and it will go off when it is full. So if I connect up the piping here, you'll still see it goes back and forth, but notice there's always some redstone power, 8, 9, 11, whatever there always is. And then when it goes up to, when it finally ends up filling up this input hatch, and then this pipe is also full, then I will get no redstone signal. So that's what I'm going to use to determine that the input hatches are full of water. Not only are they full of water, but this pipe should also be full of water. So when this essentially starts to lose some fluid and this redstone signal comes on, it's not happening when this is empty. It's happening when this is empty, which gives me a little bit of a buffer for whatever is the reason that's causing me to run out of water. So it might be a little bit of a lengthy explanation. I hope that it makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. But that is what I'm going to use as sort of a safety cutoff valve as far as turning the boiler off should I run out of water. Now I need some more of these large bronze fluid pipes to connect the boiler to the iron tanks. So I'm going to make some of those, and I shall be right back. Okay, and so here I have added some bronze fluid pipes to connect the boilers to the tanks. This will transmit the steam from the boilers into the tanks. And I have a similar setup. I have a shutter that will help control the flow of steam, and I have a fluid detector which will tell me if this pipe section here is full of steam. Remember, I can't put the fluid detector on the tank, so I have no way of determining when the tank itself is full. But this pipe will be full when it can't put steam into the tank, so I'm going to use that as my cutoff to tell the boiler to stop producing steam, because we are full of steam and there's no place to put it. And that will keep it from burning off coal or whatever I'm using to make the steam and just wasting the steam. So that's what I'm going to use as a cutoff. So I have this cutoff, which will turn the boiler off if I run out of water for some strange reason, and these cutoffs here, which will turn off the boiler when I'm full of steam. And so now all I need to do is wire everything up with some bluestone wire from the Blue Power mod, as well as some NOT gates, AND gates, OR gates, etc. And I'll do that and be right back. Okay, I think I have the wiring done. Took me a little bit longer than I was expecting because it just didn't like the way it looked at first. But I'm running wire, bluestone wire from the Blue Power mod off of these detectors that will give off redstone signals. So if we go down underneath our boiler, we'll see how this works. So these two lines come off of the water. And again, when the water is full, I get no signal. So what I do there is I go through a NOT gate, which is right here, to give it a signal. So it will only have a signal when it's full. And then those two go into an AND gate, which means that I will only get a signal coming out of this line as long as both waters are full. And that's what I want. And this line comes off the steam for the tank on that side. This line comes off the steam for the tank on this side. And they meet here into an OR gate, meaning I'll get a signal should either of them be empty. Right now they're both empty, which is why I'm getting a signal. So then that meets here with the water sensing line in another AND gate. And so essentially what happens is, as long as we're full of water and there is any room for steam, it should send a signal to the controller telling it to produce steam. At least I sure hope so. I haven't tested it yet, so we're going to find out, right? All right, so what I'm going to do first, I'm going to go like that. Okay, so you may have noticed before that when I would run this boiler, the boiler would be turning on and off extremely rapidly, and what would happen is that would cause all of the coal to get burned up. So I'm going to show that again. I thought it was a problem with the Blue Power with the wiring, but I'm using now just a regular lever. I'm going to flip it on and you can see it doing that. And each time it flashes green, it's using up a piece of the fuel. So I've got 30 in there now. If I flip that and flip it back, you can see I'm down to 21. And so where I thought that was a problem with the bluestone wiring, it actually turns out to be a problem with me, because I'm dumb. Because if you remember, I mentioned that this, which is the muffler hatch, has to have an empty space for it to vent. Now, when I had this wired up with fluids, of course, I had it like, oops, I can't put my fluid down, my pipes down. There we go, one there and one here. And so obviously this space here is empty, but it's actually not. I have a carpenter's collapsible block in this space. It's just flat. This is how I have designed things in my base, and what I do is, boop, I can put a torch underneath here, and then I put the collapsible block on top of it, and it walks as though it's flat. It doesn't raise up above the ground, and it hides the light, which I just aesthetically like it. And I use a different texture on this collapsible block just to make it kind of look different and give the room, break up the monotony of the blocks of the room. But the truth of the matter, if I get a carpenter's hammer, let me grab my carpenter's hammer real quick. Climbing, climbing, climbing. Where are you at? There you are. So these blocks actually are in this space above where they're at. So that is the problem back here, is that even though it looks free, the truth of the matter is there is a block right here, namely this carpenter's block. So sadly, I'm going to have to get stuck because I was dumb. All right, let's go like this. There we go. I can take out this torch because I won't need it, and I put a regular block here like that. Okay, I'll have to check my light levels. Yeah, I'm gonna have a little bit of problem, so I'll put a torch here for now. I'll fix the way that looks later. Okay, so now if I put coal dust, crushed coal ore in there and flip on this lever, now it's staying on. So what happens is when you turn on a GregTech machine and your muffler hatch is blocked, it turns it on, starts the process, then discovers the muffler hatch is blocked, and then turns the machine off. But if you're using the machine controller, where you're constantly providing a redstone signal, then it constantly cycles through that process. So it comes on, starts, discovers muffler hatch is blocked, turns off, turns back on because you're giving it a redstone signal, and continues that cycle. And so that's what was causing that weird flashing, and that I had troubles figuring out what it was. So that problem has been solved. Now I can redo this. Oops, take off this lever like so. Another issue that I think I was having with these AND gates not updating properly is the gates have 3 inputs. You can see 1, 2, 3, and then an output that goes here, and like that. Okay, so you can see if in the whale in the upper left hand corner, I now have it set to the back disabled. So you can see this back line is a little bit gray, or is gray, I guess. It's not a little bit gray, it is gray. And before I had that where they were all enabled. And now you can see I'm not getting a signal off of here, even though I theoretically should. So, well, I shouldn't. It's doing an AND of all 3 of these, and since this back one isn't receiving a signal, that's why I'm not getting a signal here. So I've changed this to, because I don't have a signal coming in from this side, and so now it seems to be working properly. So that was my problem with the bluestone. So I also changed the AND gate that's back there, and I changed this OR gate to exclude this signal, although that wouldn't matter with the OR gate, but I did it anyway just to keep it sort of clean. And I even did it with the NOT gates, making sure they're only sending their outputs one direction. So I just cleaned up essentially the way all of the bluestone is wired. And so now I can go back to hooking this up to here and like so. And so now that's going to send a bluestone signal into there, and see it's been turned on. Now I have the water disconnected, so eventually this water would run out and it should shut off the machine. This one's still full of water, so these pipes are still full of water as well. But as those pipes run out, that should change these signals and shut the machine off. I'm just going to let it run and wait here and see if that happens. I can see like the steam is already causing it to do things. So we can see the steam is filling up, but occasionally this pipe is probably will be full even though this tank is not, but it would then empty and then start up the machine again. Okay, the machine is now off because I've run out of coal. So let me get some more coal, or in this case, charcoal. Dump that back in there. And it goes through the charcoal or coal or whatever I put in there fairly quickly but it does produce a lot of steam, so I'm just going to need a better way of doing that. And this, of course, would take forever to completely run out of water, and this for this thing to actually be empty in some way. Now it's shutting off again. Okay, so this line has come on and has turned the machine off. Yep, the machine is off, even though it has coal. And that line corresponds to this fluid pipe. So this input hatch is full, but this fluid pipe here is not full, according to the line that's coming in through here. So as you can see, it is, as far as doing cutoff for water, it's working the way I had intended it to work. This pipe is low on water for whatever reason. Well, because it's not hooked up to the water, but if in a real setting, if this pipe runs out of water, it will shut the machine off, even though there is still water in the input hatch, which is what I wanted it to do. Remember, I don't want to wait until the input hatch is out. I want it to do it when this is out, because that gives me some buffer. That way I know that the machine won't run, but at the same time, there is still some water in there. So that's the way I wanted it to work. Now I can hook this back up to my water flow, and it should turn back on. Yep, there we go. So that's going to do it for this episode. If you have any questions or comments, leave them for me in the comment section below. I will read them, and I will respond to them. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.